holidays can be hard, particularly if you are experiencing grief or loss, be it the death of a loved one or breakup, or even the end of a friendship.
That's right. Our next guest is sharing tips to help us heal and better navigate the season. Gina Moffa is a licensed psychotherapist and grief counselor. And this summer, she released her debut book, Moving On Doesn't Mean Letting Go, a modern guide to navigating loss. Gina, hello and welcome to New York Living.
Hi, ladies. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
She was saying, how do I follow Ida? You do, because you know we all get through this together, right?
That's true. And I was just saying outside, too, you know, I love comedians because they do find a way to bring humor and lightness to hard topics
that everybody has to deal with, though.
Yeah.
Like this is what you're discussing, and everybody watching is going to take something from this because it's unavoidable.
Right.
Absolutely.
Loss. Now, that being said, we understand that you dedicated the book to your late mother.
I did.
So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, this week is her birthday.
Oh my goodness.
Happy birthday
So
to
yeah,
you.
so it's wonderful to be here. You know, when she passed, I felt, and I was a grief therapist, and I was totally sideswept by it. And I was like, how can I do this work and not know how to grieve?
Yeah.
And so I figured I had to sort of write something at some point that would teach the lessons that I, even as a grief therapist, failed to learn. And so during the pandemic, I worked with a lot of younger people who were coming with all different types of losses and grief, friendship loss, job loss, home loss. And they were like, we need a book that speaks to kind of where we are today, this modern society. I don't want to just have a memoir or whatever. And so I found a way to honor her while also feeling like I had something to offer. And so I feel like she's, poor thing, she's been busy helping me. I'm always talking to her, please help, please help. But it's a way to honor her, our relationship. And also, you know, the title of the book is Moving On Doesn't Mean Letting Go. And she's certainly been with me every step of the way.
And first of all, thank you for being so transparent and honest with us. The grief counselor who doesn't know how to grieve. I mean, that is like...
Relatable.
It's relatable.
Yeah.
So I personally appreciate that.
Me too.
Thank you.
Nobody is above or perfect.
No,
Nobody.
right.
We're all going through life in real time.
Well, yeah,
Absolutely.
and we talk about this frequently, like meeting people where they are and how do we balance all this other stuff. You mentioned grieving not just from death. You can grieve the loss of a friendship, the loss of a job. Grief shows up in a lot of different ways, which I think is important because it shouldn't take the death of someone
No.
to
Absolutely.
grieve. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, you know, and I think what is so sad about society is that grief is something that we so shy away from, and we're so afraid of it because it feels like it's facing us with mortality. But the truth is that throughout our lives, we're grieving so many different things, whether it's even just going from high school to college and grieving that identity, whether it's grieving fertility challenges or, you know, the loss of a pet, but also kind of your old identity. For people that become mothers and they're like, oh, I miss that old life sometimes, you know, and I think there's so much shame in, you know, especially friendship loss and different types of losses that people aren't able to really be honest and therefore be with their grief experience. So I think the more we know, the more we can actually show up for ourselves.
And this is so true, and that brings up a good point because everybody also, I feel like, experiences grief in a different way, whether it be because they're grieving different things, but also how you grieve the loss of the same thing that I may lose is going to be different.
I may cry, you may not cry.
Exactly, but whatever you do, you don't want to like not address it because then it gets worse.
Yeah.
So in your book, you say that there are these different grief rhythms. So can you explain a little bit what that is and how it's helpful to us?
Absolutely. You know, in my practice, I sort of observe people's tendency towards coping, right? No matter if it's grief or if it's something really hard, traumatic, even just kind of a breakup. And everyone has a tendency towards the way they cope. And so I came up with 8. There's probably more, but right now, just to keep it a little bit simpler, there's 8 grief rhythms that people kind of move through. That's like the survivor, the mover, the ruminator, the compartmentalizer, that sort of thing. And I think that the more we understand our experience, the more we can know what steps to take when we're feeling really out of sorts. And also, if you're somebody who moves a lot and you just keep it moving and people think you're not grieving, it can be really confusing, but that's just your rhythm. And I think it really helps people to understand what you're going through individually.
The bypasser was very interesting.
I know. Can we see that full screen again? Because you say there are more than these 8, but these, I mean, you really nail it with these.
You can put somebody to every single one of those.
Or myself
Yeah.
into every single one of these. I'm focusing on stay positive because I know, even in my own everyday relationships, what I have, whether they're familial or not, I've found myself, I know being positive is not necessarily being real. So sometimes I just say nothing. And then I'm like, am I being complicit? Am I not being a supportive
another
friend?
battle.
What exactly is the positive? Like, it'll be fine. It'll all work itself out. Am I doing more harm?
Yes.
Yes.
I got to
you're
put
not
it
being a
straight
diver.
out there.
Right.
Exactly. There's pros and cons to every rhythm, but the truth is it's more about being real than it is about being positive. And I think if we learn to show up as us with our people, right? If you've lost somebody, you're in a different place. You feel like you're on a different planet.
Yep.
And if Marisol, you came and you said something to her that was like, it's going to be okay. Everything
Yip it,
happens
you'll
for
be
a reason.
fine.
Right? Now she feels even more on a different planet because someone
Right.
she loves doesn't really get it.
Right.
And
Right.
so it's really less about being positive and more about being real and simply showing up.
And I'll be the first one to say, I don't know how to help you navigate this.
Right.
Great.
That's why I have a therapist. Maybe you should go. You know what, Gina?
Call Gina.
Ask her what her copay is. See what.
Right,
But Gina, I want to ask you one quick thing before we let you go, because this is really important. I can think of a ton of people who I don't know how to handle them, who have experienced like tremendous loss like that of a parent, and I see the same cycle, excuse me, over and over. And so we're getting into a pretty touchy time with it being the holidays. So quick advice or tips that you can offer anybody who's grieving the loss of a parent or a significant other or a loved one coming into this season.
Absolutely. We need to first and foremost manage our expectations of ourselves and others. I think that the holidays are hard and stressful as they are. We're always trying to be perfect. If we're a parent, we want our kids to have the perfect holiday. We just want everything to always be just so. But the truth is it's messy no matter what. It's stressful no matter what. So if you're grieving or if you know someone who's grieving, I think we really have to manage our expectations. This could even mean having a setup plan ahead of time, an ABC that I talk about in my book, which is a plan A, I'll go to the event or the holiday. Plan B is I decide that day, maybe I can't go. And plan C is you have 3 things set up just in case you wake up and things are just not going to happen. And also managing what you can show up and do.
Yeah.
It's okay. The other thing is I think we so feel the positive holiday spirit and the pressure behind that. And so I say, whatever you feel it. Give yourself permission to grieve. Give yourself permission to be stressed. Give yourself permission to ask for help. It's okay to feel what you feel right now and ask for help and more importantly, receive help.
Right.
Accept that help.
And find your partner in crime who's going to help you do all of that.
Absolutely.
Find someone at the holiday dinner table that I'm like, if we lock eyes,
If I say banana,
we're jetting.
It's true.
Making
it's true.
light of a somber subject, but very, very important.
Thank
It
you,
is really
Gina.
important. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Moving On Doesn't Mean Letting Go is out now. You can find it wherever you get your books.
there
Thank
it
you
is.
so much.
Very important.